soldiers, full-timers, and we do it with part-time soldiers, our Guard and our reserves. You know, young men and women willing to take the time and the sacrifice away from friends and family to endure the hardships that war is always going to bring. The financial, the physical, and especially the emotional. Now, when I was asked to speak today, the original speaker actually, I guess, backed out at the last minute. So my first question was, you know, what do you want me to say? At first, they told me like to speak 10 minutes, so I'm going to keep it a lot shorter than that. So just so you know. But I was told that a lot of people talk a little bit about why they went into the military, and then maybe some of their experiences, and then some of the services maybe that are open to veterans. And I'm not really qualified to talk on the latter, but I guess I'll tell you in a quick minute or two why I went to West Point in the first place. Part of it wasn't all that complicated; it was free. And it was a pretty big deal for us. My mom was a school teacher. My dad worked for an insurance company for 30 years, so free was a big determinant of the quality of the education that I was going to receive. But in reality, I always wanted to be a soldier, and I guess it came from two directions: the idea of service and a love for my country. And most people, when you go to West Point, they ask if you come from, was your dad in the service? Do you have a military background? The answer is yes, but probably not in the way that it was intended. My dad never graduated from high school. He earned what was the equivalent of the GED when he enlisted in the Air Force during the Korean War, and when he got out, he got an associate's degree, and then had a great 30-year career with the same company, Chubb Insurance. You know, and it's funny, you know, his life in raising 3 kids that went to college wasn't the thing he was most proud of. He was very, very proud of having served the United States, because it wasn't his own country. He wasn't from here. He came to America when he was 13 years old, after his father had been taken by the Soviets when they liberated his village in Hungary. And he was proud of his service. He loved our country, and he taught me to love it too. It was actually, he came to America on the Queen Mary, and before he passed away, I was able to take him to dinner on the ship, which was pretty special for me. And I learned a little bit about service in two directions. One was from the Scouts. I was a Cub Scout. I was a Boy Scout. You know, and the adult leaders and the children leaders that you see in the group, you know, are people that were tremendously important, you know, in my life. People that give the time to work with an organization like Scouting, where you're teaching service to your community and leadership, which are really the bedrock and the foundation for an awful lot of other jobs out there, not just the military. But what I learned from my mom was that, you know, a teacher is somebody that is really very, very special. You know, they're folks that don't get paid a whole lot of money but have a ton of impact on our young people. When I was getting my MBA at UCLA a few years back, one of my professors used to say that your compensation is inverse proportion to your benefit to society. In some ways, that he was saying that tongue in cheek, but the real message is, you know, there's jobs like soldiers, you know, and we have our police, you know, and our firemen behind us there. There's teachers, there's clergy, and there's a million more that I'm missing. There's just an awful lot of people that do a job that's very important, that serves the rest of us, and they don't do it because of the compensation. You know, they do it for that sense of community, for that sense of service, and oftentimes, like soldiers, they do it for the person standing next to them. So I think Veterans Day is a good day to simply remember that there's a lot of people out there that are supremely talented. They could be doing a lot of other things where they could be making a lot more money, but they choose to work for the rest of us. So for all you guys back there, you know, thank you very much for your service. You know, one of the things that happened when I got off of active duty after Desert Storm, I've been out for about 10 years. I went back into the reserves after September 11th, and probably the most indelible memory that I'll ever have, and it'll stick with me forever, was that young fireman going up the stairs when everyone else was going down the stairs. That's what made me go back in. That's what made me want to serve. You know, and it's folks like that that make this a better country, and they make all of us better just by knowing them and by calling them friends. So I'll give you a couple of just quick random thoughts about saying thanks. You know, to be considered a veteran is a great honor, so thanks. To be invited here to speak, even as a last-minute fill-in, is a great honor. So thank you again. But you know, the fact that there's so many of you here, a lot more than I ever expected, and there's so many of you out there that take the time to to thank our young soldiers, it says more about you than it'll ever say about us. And you know, you may not realize it, but the way you treat our young soldiers and servicemen and sailors and the young men and women that wear the uniform is what we call a real combat multiplier. You make them better at what they do. They become better soldiers because they feel proud of what they do. And I don't think you could ever minimize taking pride in what you do every day. And as one of the senior leaders now in the military, I can tell you that what you do just by saying thank you for your service to some of these young people is incredibly important, and I hope that you all know that. I wish that, you know, some of our veterans from some of the other wars, like my father's war in Korea and later in Vietnam, could have felt what it was like for a second, you know, when Desert Storm ended. And I think that was the turning point. That was the change. That was the minute that America embraced its soldiers and sailors. You know, and it was a great shift. And it's made, you know, 10, 12 years now of fighting on 2 wars, you know, not easy, but easier. And so I just, it's welcomed, it's appreciated, and so thank you again. You know, I guess a couple of last thoughts. When we put on this uniform, well, actually probably wouldn't put this one on to go to war. He'd be too good of a target. But when we put on our uniform and we go out and we go to war, that's actually the easy part. You know, we do what we're trained to do. The stress, you know, and the danger, it gets consumed by the training, the repetition, and by the soldier next to you. You know, you have a mission that every day kind of keeps your mind and your body occupied. The hardest part for most of the soldiers is coming home, and sometimes the simplest decisions are made difficult by the multitude of choices. You have to, you know, rehab your physical injuries, and more important, you have to rehab some of the mental ones. None of it's easy, and the only thing harder is reaching out for help when you need it. But it's important, and I think we're getting better at that. And fortunately, there's lots of people that are trying to help. So thanks to all of them. And then I guess let me close with who I think are the real heroes. You know, the folks that fight the battle every day, but don't have the benefit of the training and the constant mission focus to keep their minds occupied. You know, they can't just go out there and do their job because they're tasked with so much more. When I left for Iraq, my son was 7 months old. He was about 1.5 years when I got home. We were first-time parents, so we didn't have a lot of experience to build on. I left, and my wife, Lori, became both the mom and the dad. She had double duty, plus the responsibility of trying to make sure my son knew who I was, either when I came back or if God forbid, I didn't. She had all that, plus the burden of worrying. So Veterans Day is about thanking our soldiers, but I guess I beg you not to forget to thank the spouses, the kids, the mothers and fathers of the young people that go into harm's way, because they're the ones with the toughest jobs. They're the ones that we really should call the heroes. And somebody needs to remember to say thank you to all of them. Thanks for listening.